Hello, just a little content warning. I'm going to be discussing some biphobia in a fairly lighthearted manner, but if you need to prep yourself for that before you listen, take that time. I also will be using the term bisexual pretty broadly for speed's sake. Bisexuality is a beautifully diverse term and can encompass anything under the bisexual umbrella, such as queer or pansexual, but I'm using bisexual because it's the most well known, which is useful when trying to create educational content. Finally, I would like to note that my experience is not indicative of others and should not be used as a basis to invalidate their own journey through sexuality. 16 years ago, the New York Times published a piece called Gay, Straight, or Lying: Bisexuality Revisited, basically cherry-picking parts of a rather unethical study about how bisexual men did not exist, and by proxy, any sexuality that did not conform to liking one or the other. It was a stark case of bisexual erasure, of playing into negative stereotypes of all those who fall under the quote-unquote bisexual umbrella, and to put it lightly, was not very nice. Let me introduce myself. My name is Wolfgar. I am a college student at Cornell and a burgeoning bisexual. I like to cuff my jeans, I can't make a decision to save my life, and I'm not too great at math. Is this because I'm bi? Who knows? But what I can tell you is that I came out last year and have been hungry to better understand this new title. I know it involves some fun stuff, like being able to fall in love with all the characters in books and films, but there's also some less positive societal hurdles that face bisexuals. I wanted to create a bite-sized quip that would help someone like me put a face to the villains that are biphobia and monosexism, and what these terms truly mean. So I started off by asking some questions. The B in LGBTQ, what does it mean? In a world where the norm seems to be monosexuality, or only liking one gender, what distinguishes bisexuality among those other colors of the rainbow? What gives it visibility? How do bisexuals not get erased and delegitimized in heteronormative and queer spaces? I guess simply, how do I and other bisexuals explain our uniquely bisexual experience of the world? I wanted to take a litmus test of my current surroundings and see if my peers could answer any of my questions. They are Cornellians after all, so they should be pretty smart, right? So for context, the voices you're about to hear are some students I ran into randomly and ones I live with. The first student you're about to hear is named Kelvin.
Okay, so for me, in its simplest term, being bisexual means having sexual attraction for either same sex or opposite sex. One can feel to have sex with, if the person is a man, would feel to have sex with the man, and at the same time has feelings for sexual feelings for a woman.
Yeah, that's a pretty good definition. The next student you're about to hear is Kayla. All right, and what gives bisexuals visibility? How are they seen in queer and straight spaces?
How they should be or how they are right now?
How they are, and both.
I think right now they're seen as either like transition phases, where like, oh, you're bisexual now, but eventually you'll choose one or the other, or they're like mocked for being like not able to choose, or there's like this idea that like you're not really gay if you're bi, and what they should be is more just like, yeah, you're part of the LGBT community, congratulations. You like people.
And how do bisexuals not get experience that erasure that we were just discussing?
What do you mean by that?
So the bisexual experience can sometimes involve a delegitimization and erasure. What is some of those experiences, if you could highlight those for me?
Yeah.
And then maybe some solutions for you.
Yeah, so the ones that I kind of see a lot more are like the idea that like, oh, you have to date people of both sexes or both genders in order to like really be bi. You kind of have to prove that you are. And if you date someone of the opposite sex, it's like, oh, you're not really bi, you're just like, being greedy or whatever. And I think something that we can just solve with that is like, my whole thing is just mind your own business. If someone says that they are something, great, move on with your life. And I think that having public figures come out as bi and really standing with the bi community and being like, hey, they're valid, mind your own business, I think is probably a good step.
Do you see a lot of media portrayal of bisexuals now in the more modern age?
There's a little bit more, but it always is like a little bit more muted or seen as less relevant than like lesbian or gay or trans activism.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kayla.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.
Okay, I'm Sam.
Nice to meet you, Sam.
Nice to meet you too.
For listeners' context, Sam is over a Skype call, Zoom call?
Yeah.
Yeah.
FaceTime.
Yeah, FaceTime.
FaceTime.
All right, Sam. What gives bisexuals visibility in their spaces? How are they seen in media and in culture?
I think it really depends if you're a man or a woman. I think that people that are bisexual and women are often more accepted than men that are bisexual in general.
Do you know what the term bisexual erasure means?
I do not know.
No. Could you hazard a guess?
What was it? Bisexual what?
Erasure.
Erasure. I don't know what erasure means, so no.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sam.
For sure.
Now, I didn't catch their name, but this was a lovely engineering graduate student. Where can you think of any examples of bisexual characters or bisexual figures?
That's sad. I cannot really think about. So I can think about Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Rosa Diaz. Okay.
Rosa Diaz, yeah.
So I had a gay friend,
Mm-hmm.
and back in India, and I actually learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
About how he really identifies it and how he sees that problem. Because what I feel is that many times, because we are not facing it, we do not know the very small intricacies of that particular problem. So yeah, that is something. That's why I would probably want to know more bisexual people.
Awesome. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for your interview. You did an excellent job.
Thank you.
So what I found wasn't all too surprising. They had a good grip on what it meant to be bisexual, and some had an excellent understanding of some of the issues faced by bisexuals, but even the students that knew their stuff recognized an overall lack of awareness and visibility. This lack of visibility stems from monosexism. That is the second time I've used that word, so let me define it. Monosexism is the discrimination and delegitimizing of bisexuals through erasure, stereotypes, and prejudices. These are all dense and complicated issues that anyone could dedicate years to understanding. But for your sake and mine, let's focus on a subsect of monosexism, erasure. When the article Gay, Straight, or Lying, Bisexuality Revisited was published by the New York Times in 2005, it was the categorical erasure of bisexuality. If you want to read something so ridiculously on the nose with its monosexism that it would be funny if it wasn't infuriating, I highly recommend giving it a read, but this is the gist. The article cites a study that looks at the erections of men while watching porn to measure bisexuality. If you think that sounds like strange and faulty science, you would be correct. The article even draws its title from the common biphobic phrase, you're either gay, straight, or lying. So let's dive into these layers of bisexual erasure together. Up until recently, bisexual characters were relatively unheard of, and when bisexual characters were present, the nature of bisexuality was replaced with anything but. It was used as a plot device and characterization to pin a character as two-faced, lustful, and unloyal. The poster child of this is the movie Basic Instinct. Sharon Stone depicts a murderous, lustful, duplicitous bisexual. This cultural erasure extends past bad representation, but to full ignorance and denial of its existence. It's not uncommon for scholarly articles to note that a character in a piece of fictional work has had a sexual relationship with more than one gender, but then still refers to that character in their analysis as anything but bisexual, almost out of habit. The invisibility of bisexuals is not due to their lack of presence, but the systematic erasure of that presence. In pieces of fiction, it could be argued that whoever is consuming the media should make up their mind, and it's not the job of the author or director to explicitly state sexuality. So let's instead look at the real world, where tangible facts should be easier to prove and corroborate. It's not like you can rewrite history, right? Pop quiz. Which one of these famous historical figures is bisexual? A. The Bard himself, Shakespeare. B. Rock legend Freddie Mercury. Or C. Carol Baskin from the hit documentary Tiger King. Trick question. They all are. Bi historical figures are consistently and routinely depicted as something other than what they are. It is only quite recently, as bisexual rights have begun to receive more attention, that I can even find mainstream media articles supporting these claims. It seems for society as a whole, bisexuality is a small thought in the back of the mind. Most believe it's there, but its cultural erasure has led people unable to recognize it in their personal lives or outright deny its existence. Bisexuality threatens the simple dichotomy of homo and heterosexuality that has been created. Most people have been knowingly conditioned to accept the idea that hetero and homosexuality are inverses of the other. By proving you are homosexual, you are automatically proving you are not heterosexual. Bisexuality disrupts this concept. Thus, it is easier to reject and erase than to mentally reorganize what sexuality means. These negative depictions in media and the lack of historical awareness only go to strengthen this misconception of bisexuality and further its erasure. Now, you may be asking yourself, erasure seems like such an abstract and distant concept. How can it have such grave effects on an individual's sense of self, and how does it occur on a human level? For me, my first experience was when a girl told me if I hadn't had sex with both genders, then how could I call myself bi? She was enforcing the gender binary and being monosexist in one sentence. A real 2-for-1 special. Innocuous statements such as these, where bisexuality is seen as just a tepid middle ground or transitionary state instead of its own separate sexuality, are powerful tools of an oppressive system trying to impose invisibility on a community. I wanted to discuss more of this individual experience of erasure with my friend Sophie, a fellow bisexual. Have you ever experienced bisexual erasure?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I remember this one time, many, many years ago, probably about 6 years ago at this point, before I, necessarily came out, but I think it's one of those things, parents know you well, and parents always kind of know before you. But I was in the car with my mom in 7th grade, and I forgot how the topic came up, but she asked me if I was a lesbian, and she just went, because I don't remember why she asked me this, but I think it was just because I was saying something about, thinking that women are pretty. And she just went straight from thinking that I could be straight to thinking that I was a lesbian, and didn't really consider that there was anything I could identify with that would be in that in-between on that spectrum. And I think that assumption that I'm either one or the other, nothing in between, is just textbook definition of bisexual erasure. And I'm sure she didn't mean it in a bad way. It's just natural assumption. I think society makes us think that, everything is very black or white instead of spectrum.
And how did that affect you growing up, as your journey of becoming a young queer person?
So for a long time, I actually, in that same moment, I told her I didn't think that I was a lesbian, because I asked her, I was like, is it normal for me to think that girls are pretty and to be attracted to them? And she said that, she too often admires the way that women look. And, so sometimes it'll be admiring the way they look, or kind of, more like, I wish I looked like them. And I just kind of, brushed off my own, desires that I was bringing up as kind of it must be that. I must just, that's, everybody admires people of the same gender because they're jealous, or, they wish they had something that person had, or, they're just being, liking other people's beauty and finding beauty in everybody else. So I kind of just brushed it off. But I think after that, growing up, I brushed it off for a long time, and I was like, oh yeah, everybody likes the way everybody looks. All women think that other women are pretty. All women are attracted to other women. I didn't think anything of it until, I got older and I realized not necessarily the case. That's not really how it goes for straight people. So yeah, then I realized that definitely I was not straight, not completely.
Excellent. I had a very similar experience where I was like, I'm secure enough in my masculinity to know that that guy's handsome.
Yeah.
I'm secure enough
No big
to know
deal.
that Henry Cavill's hot. Right? It's no big deal. It probably wasn't great for your mental health, right?
No, I think for a long time it just left me very confused, and I didn't know what it meant. So I kind of once I did start getting into relationships, I just like stuck with men for a while because I didn't think I was supposed to act on any of my feelings or desires, so I didn't. But then that kind of just left me very like confused and like empty feeling.
So, we're Gen Z. Yeah.
And proud.
And how has our generation kind of changed the game in terms of understanding bisexual erasure, identifying it, bisexual rights and social activism?
So I actually have a really good story for this. You haven't heard this. So when I came out to my mom, it wasn't like a huge thing. I think she wasn't very surprised, and I just kind of forgot to tell her. It wasn't so much a I'm coming out of the closet, mom. But when I told her, she told me that she was like, okay. And I can almost nearly quote her. She said, I probably would have gone the same way too when I was your age if it had been more acceptable. And I just thought that was so funny. It's funny because the way she said it also made it sound like it's like a choice or like kind of just like a fun phase. I'm not sure she meant it to sound that way, but it was also funny because in like a less comedic way that it's totally okay for me in Gen Z to identify this way and for me to so easily just come out and just be who I am, rather than comparing that back to her generation. I believe she's a millennial. Well, yeah. And for her to say, like, it wasn't really a thing back then. Like, even if you were questioning, you just stuck with straight is kind of the way she made it seem. And I just think it's kind of sad, but I definitely think, I'm not really sure exactly what changed over the years, but there's just most definitely a stark contrast between how accepting it was in her generation versus ours.
We've arrived at the end, dear listener, and if you have stuck around this far, probably means you enjoyed it. I hope it means you enjoyed it. And now that you've gotten this taste for this knowledge, go forth and continue to educate yourself and others. Queer culture and theory is a thrilling, dynamic thing. It is something to be enjoyed and reveled in by all of the LGBTQ+ community and its allies. And as we conclude, an important side note that I want to make is that the struggle against bi-erasure has been constant, but as Gen Z continually shows to be the queerest generation ever, this issue has slowly begun to attract the attention it deserves. Hopefully, all of what I have described will soon become outdated. But to correct a problem, it must first be described. I hope you enjoyed this small dip into the theory, and if you like the content, let me know and share it with your friends. I think this might be something I want to continue. Bye for now, and bye tomorrow.